My guest today is Melinda Haring, who is a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and a senior advisor at ROSM, which is a charitable organization based in New York that has done immense activities and benefits for Ukraine. And I wanted to begin, Melinda, by asking you, you've traveled many times to Ukraine, most recently this summer where you spent time in Lviv. You've also been to the front lines. What is your assessment of the mood in Ukraine right now as it is trying to hold off the Russian assault?
Jacob, the mood in Ukraine is one of determination, but the people there are very tired. This is the third winter of war, and the electrical grid is very weak, and people are worried that it's going to be even more dark and cold this winter. It really depends on how many missiles the Russians fire and if they hit in the right places. But I'll give you an example. This summer in Lviv, I was a student at Ukrainian Catholic University learning Ukrainian, and I would be taking a shower and the power would go out. I would have to study by candlelight at night. With these power cuts, it makes life very, very difficult. It's hard to go to school. It's hard to run a business. It's hard to have a restaurant meal. I would be in the middle of purchasing a gift or at the store, and the Visa card machine would go down. So these power cuts that we've seen in Ukraine make ordinary life extremely hard. More than 1 million Ukrainian children have to have their lessons online as a result of the war in Ukraine. If the air sirens go off, kids go down in the shelters, and that they can't be sitting in their classrooms. So education is constantly interrupted as well.
One of the interesting or sobering things about this war, you mentioned children. There is a report that just came out today from Yale University, which ties Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, directly to the kidnapping of children in the eastern Ukrainian territories and removing them to Russia.
Right.
The report indicates that Putin's own personal planes have been used for this purpose. I assume this does not surprise you, as it is part of a larger war, not just for territory,
right,
but also to wipe out the essence of the Ukrainian nation.
That's exactly right, Jacob. So this report does not surprise me. The Vladimir Putin is personally involved in this strategy to destroy Ukraine. This is not about NATO membership. His intent right now is to make sure that Ukraine is not a viable country. And I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but the Russians have taken thousands of Ukrainian children, and they've removed their passports, and they're indoctrinating them and trying to turn them into Russian citizens.
Now let's look at the high politics, the geopolitics of this situation for a second. You're also intimately aware of the negotiations that are taking place, or that could take place, between the United States and Russia over the fate of Ukraine. What is your assessment right now? President-elect Trump has appointed Keith Kellogg to be his special emissary to Ukraine. What is your read on the potential Trump administration policy towards Ukraine and Russia?
So let's start with a few knowns. I want Ukraine to succeed. I want Ukraine to be a democratic, viable country. And in order to be a democratic, viable country and to be sovereign, it has to be in control of its borders, and it needs access to seaports. So those are issues that I would be thinking about in negotiations. The most important, though, are security guarantees. Ukraine has to have real security guarantees. It has to ensure that Russia cannot attack it again. What that means is NATO membership. Now, Keith Kellogg is hawkish. He's 80 years old. He has a very distinguished military background. He's a retired lieutenant general. He knows Russia well. He knows that Russia is a threat. He doesn't mince words when he gives interviews. And he's put together with Fred Fleitz a long paper, Jacob, I think that you've read, and it outlines his ideas on how to get peace.
Now, for the audience, I should explain two things. First, Melinda has written a long piece, or co-authored it, in the Jerusalem Strategic Tribune. about why she is more optimistic about Trump's approach to Ukraine. And also, Fred Fleitz and Keith Kellogg are affiliated with the America First Institute, which released this lengthy paper. But Melinda, I'd like you to expand on your piece in the JST about why you think there is room for cautious optimism about Trump's approach to Ukraine and Russia.
Sure. So, Jacob, I was really fed up because everyone is saying, oh my God, the sky is falling. Donald Trump is coming back into power. There's no internationalists in his inner circle. No one has any real foreign policy experience. And I don't think that's true. So he's nominated Kellogg. He's nominated Michael Waltz, who's a congressman, former Green Beret, also has very strong national security credentials. So I think people are more assured by these nominations. There's plenty of people that don't give us assurance. But look, Trump has said a lot of things. He said that he wants to end the war in 24 hours. This is a campaign promise. It's impossible. He is very skeptical of Ukraine aid. He calls Zelensky, he has very rude things to say about Zelensky. He says he's a great con man. But at the same time, you have to go back and look at the record. Trump was actually strong, and he was hawkish in his first administration toward Putin. He did things that Barack Obama was unwilling to do. Let me give you examples. So this is not a very popular opinion, but you have to go back and look at his record. So Trump authorized the use of javelins. He sent javelins to Kiev when the Ukrainians kept begging and begging for them, and Obama had refused to do it. He also renewed sanctions. In 2014, Russia illegally annexed Crimea, and the European Union put sanctions in place. The Trump administration in the first term decided to continue those sanctions, and they also were very hawkish with Nord Stream 2, the big gas pipeline in Germany, and they put sanctions on Nord Stream 2.
The gas pipeline that was running from Russia through the Baltic Sea to Germany.
Right. So look, you can look at the first record, and he was actually tough. In spite of the rhetoric, in spite of the way that Ukraine was used as a political football in 2019, his actual policy was pretty good. But he had very strong, tough people in his administration. He had good Russia expertise, good Ukraine expertise in his first administration. So I had some pause as he was making all these statements about Zelensky he's unfit for office, and his skepticism about Ukraine aid. J.D. Vance has also made Ukraine skepticism a big part of every speech that he makes. He said something like, "I don't care about the Ukrainian people. I don't care about victory." And there's questions about whether Ukrainian victory is in U.S. national interests. So Kellogg is hawkish. He's gone on Fox News and he says Biden is a wimp. He should have given ATACMS the long-range missiles that they just authorized a year ago. They should have poured far more military assistance in to change the nature of the war much earlier on. I also think, though, that we need to think about Trump as an actor. So Trump wants a Nobel Prize, or he wants glory in general, and he's not going to enter into negotiations with Vladimir Putin coming out as a weak guy. And it's entirely possible Vladimir Putin always overplays his hand. It's entirely possible that Vladimir Putin will offend Trump, and Trump will say, "You think I'm a wimp? Let me show you what American power looks like." So I think it's possible that we'll end up seeing quite a forceful Trump vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine.
Now, another area where Russia is active, of course, is in the Middle East. And I'm wondering what you think the implications of the rebel offensive in Syria are for Ukraine, because the rebels in Syria, much to the surprise of everyone, have dealt a rather humiliating blow to the Assad regime and, by extension, Putin, who invested enormous amounts in trying to back Assad.
Right.
What's your take on the situation?
So we saw over the weekend Russia sent some missiles in, and it was the first time they had done that since 2016. And the Russian bases in Syria are very important for the projection of power. So Russia's not going to let go of Syria. It's invested far too heavily there. I think some people were saying, look, the Russians can't do two They can't be involved in two places at the same time, Syria and Ukraine. Yes, they can. Will it cause them pain in Ukraine? I don't think so. It looks like they're going to be able to do both, but Russia is going to hang on because those bases it has in Syria allow it to project power in the Middle East.
Final question. German Chancellor Scholz just visited Ukraine.
Right.
But the Germans are still refusing to sanction the use of long-range missiles in Ukraine. What's your take on the importance of his visit? Was it important, or was it just a PR move by a failing chancellor?
It was just a PR move, but I think there's a bigger problem right now. So Ukraine doesn't have enough weapons, it doesn't have enough money, and it doesn't have enough men. And the European Union can solve many of those problems. The European Union has been making huge promises about turning on its industrial base and stepping up production of 155 shells. They haven't hit their targets, and Germany's to blame in particular. Germany and France need to be doing more. The Europeans are sitting on their hands. And the big issue is on January 20th, if Donald Trump comes in and he turns off the tap, the Europeans are screwed. And there's no easy way to make up for the assistance that the U.S. has provided.
Well, Melinda, thank you for your impassioned remarks. You are well known in Washington and elsewhere as a forceful and dedicated advocate for paying attention to Ukraine and ensuring that it is not simply swallowed up by Russia. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you.